John 4, verse 5, or you can follow along on the screen. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from his journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews did not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did all his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." He told her, "Go call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You are right when you say you have not a husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true." "Sir," the woman said, I can see that you're a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship him in the Spirit and in truth." The woman said, "I know that the Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." Alan, come and share with us. Blessings.
Please pray with me. O God, again, we, your people, have gathered. And in these moments, dear God, we pray that you would pour your living water into the deep, dry places of our souls. May we open our lives to you, that we might know the new life that you want to give in this day. Amen. As you walked in this morning, you were handed this dry piece of cardboard. Now, for some of you, this is probably just one more way in which the preacher and the worship planning team is trying to be cool and trendy, and it just doesn't work. And if that's true for you, just lay it aside, okay? For some of us, this is probably an accurate symbol of the dryness we are feeling deep within our souls. For some of us, we know our doubts, we know our fears, we know our struggles. We know God loves me. That's John 3:16. We've said it many times. We know that with our head. but down in our hearts, we just have a real hard time believing that to be true. We know we're thirsty. We know we're hungry. We know we need a fresh touch from God. Last Sunday in worship, I invited you to write down your dreams for the church, to bring them to the front and to put them in baskets. Many of you did. I'm very, very grateful for that. On Monday morning, I read down through those dreams. There are many different thoughts expressed about what you hope and dream for this part of God's church. But one of the themes that I did hear was this yearning for a new movement of God in our midst, a fresh outpouring of God's Spirit. Now, I do want to say about those hopes and dreams, what we're going to do with those, we are collating them, we're transcribing them. Those will be given to our elders, to the leaders of our council, to the search team. We will be using that as one more picture of where we are as a congregation. Having said that, I sense that there is this yearning within us for a fresh outpouring of God's Spirit. Over the last few weeks during this Lenten season, we have been looking together at the topic, Encountering God, What Have We Witnessed? And the specific topic for the morning is what have we witnessed through nourishment that meets our needs. And in this series, we have been looking at various individuals mentioned in Scripture, at their encounters with God. As we look at their stories, we look at our story. As we look at what God has done in their lives, we look at what God wants to do in our lives. And the particular story of the morning that we are looking at is the story found in John chapter 4 that Renita read for us a few minutes ago. As we look at that story, it is a story of Jesus meeting a woman at Samaria at the village well at noon. Recently I read that every good story, somewhere within that story is contained conflict. If we don't have conflict in the story, we just have a report. Not too many of us enjoy reading reports. What is the conflict contained in this story? We need to unpack that just a little bit. We are told in the Scriptures that Jesus and his disciples are traveling from Judea in the south to Galilee in the north, and they are going through Samaria. I should also say the disciples leave Jesus, they go into the village, they're looking for food. So Jesus is alone, he's sitting beside the well, it's noon, a woman comes, and Jesus asks her to give him some water. She responds with surprise. You are a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? Now, there's conflict here. We might not necessarily catch it right away. What's the conflict? Actually, Jesus is breaking 3 significant social taboos when he asks this person for a drink. The first taboo is Jews and Samaritans. There was this awkward tension between the two groups. It's a little bit like having those cousins that I think most of us have, but wish we didn't. They drink too much, they talk too loud, and their names are in the paper far too often in the police report. Yes, go back far enough, the Jews and the Samaritans were related. They both traced their ancestry back to Abraham. However, there was a period in Jewish history when the northern kingdom of Samaria was captured by the Assyrians. Most people were deported. For those who remained, they intermarried with the peoples of the surrounding nations. They failed to maintain their pure Jewish stock. Call them half-breeds. That was the Samaritans. And with this tension between them and us, also by something of an accident of history, you have this good, strong Jewish province down in the south, the province of Judea. You have this, well, not quite as strong, but a good Jewish province of Galilee up in the north. There, smack in the middle of the two, was the province of Samaria. The quickest way to get from Jerusalem to Galilee was through Samaria. However, well, that might be a place you just didn't feel like you wanted to go. And so it was not uncommon for Jewish people going from the south to the north to make that trip down through Jericho, cross the Jordan River, go up the eastern side of the Jordan River, and cross back into Galilee. If you want a modern day comparison, think for a moment of trying to go from here to Harrisburg, but you're going to go via York up the other side of the river just so you don't have to go past those disreputable people in Elizabethtown. That was kind of this roundabout trip. Instead of making the trip in one day, it would take you 2 days to get there. Jesus and his disciples chose to go directly through Samaria. And Jesus is talking to a Samaritan. The disciples are going into a Samaritan village to try and buy food. Right there, they're breaking a significant social taboo. The second taboo they are breaking, Jesus is talking to a woman. Now, ladies, please don't be insulted. I'm just being descriptive here. I'm not saying this is how it should be. But in Jesus' day, women were not to be seen or heard in public. In fact, a number of the religious leaders, the good rabbis, would not even talk to their own wives in public. And William Barclay tells of a group of Pharisees. They were called the bruised and the bleeding Pharisees because anytime they would see a woman coming, they would close their eyes and in the process would trip and fall down or run into walls. That was how serious they were about their faith. Here is Jesus, the rabbi, the teacher, talking to a woman. That's the second significant social taboo. The third one is maybe a little bit more obvious to us. As they begin this conversation, Jesus requests, he asked for the drink. Why are you asking me for a drink? If you knew the gift of God and who is asking, you would ask him and he would give you living water. Again, frequently in John, we find this confusion that there's the people who are listening hear something in a very, very literal way. Water, well, there's the well, and the well is deep, and you've got nothing to draw from. And again, Jesus tells her, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty. Whoever drinks the water I give will never thirst. The water will become a spring of water welling up to eternal life. The woman is still thinking pretty literal at this point. Well, give me this water and then I don't have to come to the village well again. Now, Jesus tells her to go call her husband. Well, I have no husband. That's true. You've had 5 husbands, and the person you're married to now is not your husband. Let's hit the pause button here for just a moment. My understanding of this story is colored by my experience in Botswana 40 years ago. I've mentioned before, I served with MCC for 3 years in Botswana, Africa. While there, I was on a school compound. On the school compound, we had both water and electricity. But soon after arriving in the village, at the school, I traveled to the village of Machuti, some 40 miles away. In many parts of the country, they did not have water, indoor plumbing, or electric in the house. And so, very early in the morning, and I don't remember if it was the first or second day I was there, very early in the morning I wake up. It's still dark outside, but the village is coming alive. You can hear the roosters crowing, the dogs are kind of whimpering, there's talking outside, there's movement. And so I get up, I got dressed, I went out. In the east, there's just the beginning of the sunrise is coming. The sky is turning light. But I look around and there's women and there's children and they're carrying their buckets on their head and they're all headed to the village well. I looked around, I found the bucket. I didn't put it on my head. I carried it. I followed the women as we went to, it wasn't a well, it was a standpipe. As we went to the pipe. And the women are chatting with their family and friends, exchanging greetings in the morning, probably exchanging some gossip. This is just part of what was done every day, every morning. Get the bucket, go to the well, talk to your friends, wait in line, get your water, and come home again. Now, how does that experience influence my understanding of this scripture? Well, if you live in a hot, dry, dusty country where you have no indoor plumbing, you go in the morning before it gets hot outside. And when you go in the morning, you're talking with all your family and your friends. What does the story say? A woman is going at noon, heat of the day, alone to the village well. Now, there's several different ways we can read this story. But even today, we hear of someone who has been married 5 times, living with a person who is not her husband, and we're saying, We've already got some opinions formed, and they're not good ones. And so it's entirely possible. I need to say something else here. Whatever else we think we know about this story, there's a whole lot we don't know. We don't know if the woman had lost husbands because of divorce or death or because they abandoned her. We don't know. What we do know about that time is whatever happened, the woman did not initiate it. Women did not have the option of divorcing their husbands in those days. Now, it's entirely possible that through the years, the woman had heard a great number of snide remarks, persons who were talking and suddenly stopped when she showed up. It is entirely possible that this woman was carrying a great deal of pain and shame. There are perhaps some very good reasons why she came to the village well at noon, alone. Jesus makes the observation, you have been married 5 times, the person you're living with now is not your husband. The woman responds, "Sir, I perceive you are a prophet." Now, that might just be her way. This is getting far too personal and it's time to change the subject. Perhaps. But also bear in mind that throughout the Gospel of John, sight has an important theological connection. To see is to understand. I understand that you are a prophet. I understand that you are one who can see, both into human lives and into the mysteries of God. So here's the other problem. You and I are completely on opposite sides of the fence about the proper place to worship. You Jewish people say that it's supposed to be up in Jerusalem, at the temple there. And we Samaritans, well, we say it's here on Mount Gerizim. Now remember, they shared a distant ancestor. They shared the first 5 books of Moses, the Pentateuch. There was much they had in common, but they had two different places of worship, and that appears to be an irreconcilable difference. So what is the proper place to worship? And Jesus responds to her. A time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor up in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what you know. Salvation is from the Jews. Yet, a time is coming and has now come when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Just a couple comments here. Do I believe that there is absolute truth? Of course I do. We can't just have, well, what's true for you is true for you, and what's true for me is true for me, and that's all that really matters. I believe there is God's truth. Now, having said that, I would also caution us that we need to be very, very careful, unless you're convinced that your mind is so wise that you can totally grasp all the truth of God. We need to show some humility as we pursue God's truth, as we seek God's truth, as we proclaim God's truth. God is so much bigger than any of us have gotten figured out yet. That's one observation to make. The second observation is this. Yes, there are times when we encounter God in the midst of our worship. As most of you are aware, Kathy's brother died last Sunday. We had the memorial service yesterday at Grace Point Church. In that service, as we sang the songs, "Blessed be the name, 10,000 reasons, it is well with my soul. Low in the grave he lay." As we heard the affirmations of Dan's life and of his faithfulness to God, there was a very, very strong sense that God was present. And yes, sometimes that's the sense we have here as we gather in worship together, and we praise God for that. Having said that, where did this Samaritan woman encounter God? In the heat of the day, alone at a village well. And let me suggest that God often wants to meet us in the commonplaces of our lives, in the places of our lives where we are struggling in the midst of the heat and the dryness, feeling like we are alone and marginalized. In those places, God is there, wanting to offer that life-giving water. The woman, whatever she may have been feeling, whatever her reason may have been to come to the village well alone at noon, I would suggest she heard no shame or condemnation in the tone or the words of Jesus. She says, "I know the Messiah is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Jesus responds, "I am." That's the Greek. Our English says, "I am he." I am. The echo of Exodus, as God meets Moses, and Moses said, "Who shall I tell sent me?" And God said, "I am." Jesus to the woman at the well says, "I am." And in that encounter with Jesus, the woman's life is changed. I know, that's reading between the lines. But how else do you explain her eagerness to go back and talk to her entire village? Come and meet the one who told me everything. There is a transformation in her life. This dry piece of cardboard. We have an opportunity this morning, and I want to encourage you. You don't have to, but I really want to encourage many to do so. We have 4 stations of water around the sanctuary. I would encourage you to come to dip your cardboard in the water and to experience the transformation of the cardboard. And in that transformation, to catch just a little glimpse of the transformation that God wants to do in your life and in mine and in our midst together. And as you see that transformation, let me suggest you might do one thing more with it. And the one thing more, we are blessed in order that we might be a blessing. We are given in order that we might give. And I would suggest that maybe you take that transformed piece of cardboard and offer it to someone else. Perhaps someone you don't know at all or don't know well, with a word of encouragement or a word of blessing. We serve an amazing, life-giving, transforming God. May we continue to experience his presence in our midst.